Hello, people. What is going on? Have your say special here to talk about Niclas Füllkrug, if that's how you pronounce it. To my right is Jay, all the way from the sea. I see it on his bio. You know what I mean? Jay, how you doing?
Yeah, good mate. How you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Listen, I'm enjoying the summer, but I would like West Ham to kick into action and start signing some players. That I keep talking about it. Where do we begin here? Let's talk about the striker front. Obviously, Füllkrug's been mentioned. Yeah, don't know how much the fee is, but what are you saying in regards of this drama with Durán and everything?
What am I saying? I wanted to use the E word a second ago, which is excited, but there's no point being excited about any player in a West Ham transfer window, is there? Like, we've been linked with or leading the race for like every player under the sun, I swear. But if you look at it on face value, right? Füllkrug as a player, I think fits the profile perfectly for what we want. And you can park the conversation about like his age and the project, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. I think in terms of profile, you look at what he did in the Euros for Germany and how consistent he was. You look at what he's done for Dortmund, something like 20 goal involvements last season, and he's performed in the Champions League. Like, I don't really know what else we could really want. I think he's a really shrewd bit of business. Agreed with you. It totally depends on the fee, because you compare this with the whole Jhon Durán saga, and we can definitely call it a saga. You compare it with that, and if you manage to get this over the line in a reasonable amount of time, and you get it for good, you get him for good money, then it's good business as far as I'm concerned. But what do you reckon?
For me, it's not West Ham, mate.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. Like, I look at this as a new era, and Mikel Antonio has been here a long time, and we need someone who's going to come in and take over from Mikel Antonio. Don't get me wrong, I agree with you. He's a good player. He's a good player. But this, for me, is like a player that it's a scattergun approach to try and go out and get someone because we can't get our main target, or we won't go to the main targets thing. I get it, but for me, well, how can other clubs go out there and find a centre forward like that? But West Ham are literally scrambling about to try and find one. And that is the $1 million question. Like, over the years under Sullivan's reign, and we will talk about him later on, but for me, like, come on, like, I rate the player, but I don't rate the strategy. Right? This to me is like, because you can't pay the money for Durán, you're scrambling around now. That's the problem.
Yeah, I get you. And you say an interesting word, right? I see this word thrown about on Twitter all the time, the scattergun approach. And I think none of us are under any illusions. We need 5 players who can come in and make an impact in this first team. And in a whole variety of different positions. So I find it interesting, and it's very it's a valid point to look at our strategy and call it scattergun. And it looks like there's like, what is the vision? There's a lot of questions being asked of our transfer dealings and how we're going about them. But I think the fact of the matter is we've got a reasonable budget, but because we've got so many different positions that we actually need players in, I think bidding big on Durán, and I think bidding what was more than a fair price, 30 odd million plus add-ons. I think that's fair value. And if Villa don't want to budge, then fine, move on. I'd rather we go and get someone for good, fair money than pay over the odds for a player that would, I think, it'd be loved at West Ham. You look at his character and his personality. He's exactly the kind of like person that we want at West Ham. But the fact that we're not then going to go beyond 32 odd million pounds, so it seems, for Jhon Durán, if you can get someone who's been performing at the top level in Füllkrug and then move the money and potentially spend it elsewhere on one of the other problem positions, I don't mind it, mate. And I wanted to pick up on one of your points as well, where you talk about Antonio having been leading the line, and he's obviously at the end of his career now. What has he got? 1 year left in his contract, maybe?
Yeah, 34.
Yeah, so he's 34 with 1 year left. You've got Ings, who's got 1 year left in his contract. So to your point, I think this is the perfect kind of, and I know it's stopgap, so I can't think of a better word for it. But I think interim, as an interim striker, to go, all right, if we can't get the future player in now, then why don't we get somebody who you could look at and go, right, he fits the profile of player for what we're going to need in terms of a centre forward under Lopetegui for his style. Focus on the vision and maybe players that are going to be younger and around for longer in other positions. And then next summer, we're going to have to sign another striker anyway. Like, realistically, you're going to lose Ings and you're going to lose Antonio next summer because both of them at the end of their deal. So why not get Füllkrug in now, who's going to have an impact, and then get a younger striker in next season? That's my argument.
The only issue with that is there's no guarantees that Füllkrug's going to be an instant impact in the Premier League, right? He's never played in the Premier League. He's always been a Bundesliga based striker. The issue I've got is no one can tell me that Tim Steidten hasn't come to the club, and when they all had a meeting about players, no one turned around and said, right, we need a centre forward at this club for next season. And for me, if Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton can go out and find players from nowhere, bring them to the club and turn them into gems, why are West Ham struggling? Yeah, there is so many players out there on this planet that we could go and get, but we've got a combined age of 97 years old with Ings, Antonio and Füllkrug. That is unacceptable. I'm sorry. It's just for me, that's unacceptable as a fan. I was growing up. I've seen some of the greats at West Ham. Obviously, Di Canio growing up, Cotty, Dowie, Hartson, Kitson. I've seen people like Ashton, Harewood, Zamora growing up. All these strikers, but West Ham can't find one. Yeah. And the answer to the question is it the case that West Ham can't find one, or is it the case that West Ham won't pay the money for one? Right, that's the $1 million question. And for me, Jay, I understand it, the Füllkrug hype. I do, but it doesn't mean to say it's right. Like going from a 20-year-old up and coming centre forward in Durán, which I do agree with you, is a lot of money for a man who is mixed on sort of ability, yeah. And then going for a 31-year-old experienced player who has never played in the Premier League, never experienced a Premier League atmosphere and hostility, and also is 31 years old, which is susceptible to injuries and all. So I don't know, mate. I don't know. I'm just not on that vibe. I really am not.
I think you're not wrong, mate. And again, like you mentioned some great strikers there. And I think I challenge anyone to name, since Dean Ashton, like a striker who's been at the club who's been properly what I'd deem like a successful striker. And if it weren't for injuries, obviously Dino would have gone on to have a great career.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, that's part of my reasoning why I look at this as good business. Is you're absolutely right. There's no guarantee he's going to turn up and do well. But
yeah,
no West Ham striker turns up and does well realistically. It just doesn't happen. So if with that in mind, I think I'm going to kind of contradict myself with a couple of things that I'm going to say, but I would say he's the less risky signing in terms of he's lower money. You can spend the money elsewhere, and the chances are, being a West Ham fan, whoever we sign up front's not going to do well anyway. So I would say, for me personally, he is a sensible bit of business. Whilst Durán, I think, would be more exciting, and ultimately, it's not my money. So, like, as long as they get the players in that we need, I don't really care how much they spend on people. As long as we're not violating PSR, and as long as we fill the positions that we need to fill, then like fees don't really matter to me. But at the same time, knowing that we've got so many players that we need to sign, I've no issue with them then going, because for me, like the position that's kind of going under the radar because we've got 4 players in the position is centre back. And we all know how badly we need another centre back to partner Max Kilman. I know it came out in the press the other day that straight after the Wolves game, I don't know who initiated it, but basically between Steidten and Lopetegui, they decided they need another centre back. And I'm like, well, yeah, we've been watching Kurt Zouma for a long time. And as much as he seems a great bloke and he did well in his first season, that picture of him after the Dagenham and Redbridge game with ice on his knees after 45 minutes against lower league opposition is
I'll put it up.
Yeah.
That was picture of E20. That was.
Yeah. That picture is like frightening. That bloke was so far off the pace. And I know it's pre-season and I know whatever, but he's done. Him as a 4th choice centre back is too high up the pecking order for like a West Ham team for me. No disrespect to the player, but ultimately I think he's proven that he's not capable of playing consistently at Premier League level. So if this then means that we can get the knock-on effect, and it's talked about the domino effect in transfers, right? If signing a player that's slightly cheaper who can come in and have an impact potentially means we can spend more money elsewhere, I would rather, hypothetically speaking, we go out and get a good quality centre back who can come in and partner Kilman and just get rid of Zuma at whatever price. And it's cutthroat.
I don't think we can though, Jay.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to be honest. Right, my opinion is that I don't think West Ham have the ability to shift any players that they don't want. I think Danny Ings is a problem because of the money he's on, and he ain't going to go nowhere. But would you go anywhere for less? If you know you're guaranteed 125 grand a week.
Yeah,
I highly doubt it. Maxwell Cornet is another problem. You've got a player there who's not very good. No one's really looking at him. No one's going to pay the money for him. So what do you do with him? Aguerd is the money earner. To me, Aguerd's the money earner because he's the only one who's going to fetch any sort of money that's going to benefit the side. And no one's really interested in him to a point. Maybe late into the window, maybe when West Ham buckle, because West Ham wants something like 35 million for him. You ain't getting 35 million for Aguerd. And then you've got Zuma, who no one's really going to touch unless they're a lower. The problem is with Zuma is he's on a lot of money at West Ham. He ain't going to go down a level. So he's either going to have to go abroad, or he's going to have to sit at West Ham and wait it out. And I get the argument of right. If we get this player in, Füllkrug in, he's a striker, and then we start working at other positions, and they all come together. That's all well and good, but I've seen this too many times. That's one thing. Like over the years, I've seen it too many times with players. We say that, and then when they come in and drop in a free transfer or someone else. And it just shouldn't be like that. That's my argument is if Durán is your guy, and he's the one that you're pinpointing, the guy. The issue is now where Durán is twerking for West Ham, and he wants to come. Villa have gone lovely. You have to pay the money now.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying? And this is the argument that I've had on Spaces over the last sort of 72 hours. Is people not understanding now that Villa hold the cards with this geezer because it's the same thing with the Declan Rice thing last season. West Ham said he's an £100 million player. That's what we want. And in the end, they got that 100 million. West Ham have gone into recent bids with 3 players, for example, Wan-Bissaka, Somerville, and Durán, all lowball straight away. And someone just said it great on a space that I've just done. Yeah. When PSR was after Villa and they had to get rid of Douglas Luiz, they didn't really want to sell, but they had to for the sake of it. West Ham should have been in for Durán then, because that way you would have got a lower fee for a player there when Villa were desperate. Villa are not desperate now. Right? Villa have got it massively under control. But my argument is that when you've got Tim Steidten here and he's got to identify targets, surely someone out there would have gone, right, we have got to get a centre forward at this club next season and say goodbye to Mikel Antonio. Yeah. If that's a young up-and-coming striker, I can accept that for a year, Jay. I can, because Antonio comes in. I don't particularly want to see Antonio thrown out the door like he's nothing when he's been a good servant to West Ham. I think he needs to be sort of slowly eased out the side and bring the next gen right in. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a respectful way of doing it.
Agreed.
I don't think bringing a 31-year-old in, for how good he is, and he is decent, don't get me wrong, is the right move. It feels like it's a short-term fix for a player, and we are going to pay this man a lot of money. It's not like he's going to come for 80 grand a week. He's going to come for in excess of 100 grand plus a week.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and I agree with you on Antonio. Like we're talking about signing a new striker and how desperate we are for a striker. We've got to acknowledge what a great job Antonio's done over 9 years at the club, and that he sees off every striker we sign. He just sees them off as Antonio's just a better fit for the club. So I do agree with you there, and you're right. We probably dropped the ball a bit on Durán, and we missed our time to strike, and that's where I think inexperience with the recruitment team working together has probably played a part in that. We've obviously looked at a whole rebuilding project that we've got on at the moment, and it's going to take time, but we probably did miss the right time to strike. So I completely agree with you there. And I think we both know the major problem at this club that causes us to miss the ball or drop the ball or miss opportunities or, overspend or not bid enough and et cetera, et cetera. I think, given the scale of what we've got to actually do, and there's something that has kind of been slept on a little bit that that hasn't like left my mind since it happened. So when we were hunting for a new manager and we were basically speaking to any top level manager that we could, and something that West Ham fans are quite used to now over this summer, which is most of them just said they weren't interested. There was a moment in one of X's updates where he said that we had spoken to a candidate who was top level, who wasn't interested right now, but they explored the idea of would he be interested in 2 years. And there's obviously a conversation that's gone on there. And this hasn't left my brain for whatever reason. I can't forget that. And then Lopetegui was announced, and I believe on a 2-year contract. So there's a 2-year process that's going to be undertaken here. So obviously Lopetegui's got certain metrics he's got to hit. I reckon, and this is the way I look at it. And another thing that the fan base is kind of sleeping on that I think you mentioned the other day actually was this first few months is not going to be fun. Like this is going to be a hard watch for probably up until Christmas. And what's really important is, in my opinion, like my only goal for this season is that the fan base unites again. And we don't forget what the real goal is here, which is West Ham winning games. Like ultimately, as long as we're united behind the team, however they go about doing it, whether it was under the old manager, whether it's under the new head coach, I don't really care. But West Ham winning games and the fan base being united has to be the ultimate goal for this upcoming season. Where we finish, I think as long as we're around mid-table, it's not what everyone's going to want to hear. It's not what I want to happen. But as long as we're around mid-table, but we show signs of progress around the club, then it's still not a bad season. I'm not saying it's a good season, but it's not a bad season. There's a 2-year project. I
just want to say this, Jay.
Go on.
But what's the line? Because what becomes acceptable and what becomes deemed unacceptable? Because a mid-table finish, we lose Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paqueta, Edson Alvarez. I think West Ham right now are a top 10 side. If you go through the top 10, you go to Big Six, you go Aston Villa, you go Newcastle, and then I'm going to say it's us. It has to be us. I don't see any other club near us who are bigger than us, really. Maybe Everton, but Everton are not the club that they once were, as in being a big club, but we are that big club at the minute. I personally think West Ham are the 9th, if not the 9th, 10th best team in the Premier League. Yeah, and that's not me being biased, it's me being honest. I think we're bigger than Bournemouth, Brentford, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, Wolves. So I look at them 5 and I look at the teams below that. I don't see it myself. So I think a mid-table finish it's like you're accepting it before it's happened when Lopetegui has come here to basically maintain and progress us up the league rather than going backwards first.
Maybe if I flesh that out a little bit, I'm not saying that's a good finish for us. I think there's a trade-off in certain things. And what I mean by progress is we've been crying out, or a large section of the fan base has been saying they want to be entertained. And I think that something we haven't factored in is how much of a drastic change in style of play this is actually going to be. Like you look at the personnel that we've got in certain positions who are in there for a low block effectively. So you overnight effectively switch them to say, right, we're going to have possession, but not for the sake of possession. When we get the ball at the back, we're going to look to break the lines. We're going to look for fluid movement, and we're going to look to play a bit more of a free-flowing game to actually control the game as opposed to contain the opposition. That's a massive, massive change. And we have to factor in that the signs were there against Wolves the other day, right? And I don't care about results like in preseason. Like anyone who cares about results in preseason, you're looking at the wrong thing. But what stood out to me was the individual mistakes that led to the goals. So that is part and parcel of this project, right? Because we haven't gotten used yet to playing this style of football. There will be individual mistakes that lead to goals. That is it. You look at other teams that have gone through changes in style of play, or look at the big managerial changes, right? Look at when Arteta came in at Arsenal and he changed their style of play. They were bottom of the league after 4 games. You look at when Pep and Klopp came in to effectively bring a new style of play to Man City and to get a new style of play to Liverpool. Well, City nearly missed out on the Champions League to us in 15-16. We went to Liverpool and turned them over 3-0 in that season as well. And there was a lot of problems there. And they had what those clubs would deem as bad seasons. But you look at all 3 of those clubs now and look at where they are in the table and look at what they've done since that rebuilding project has happened. I'm not saying I'd be happy with a mid-table finish, but what I'm the key thing that I'm trying to like balance off here is this doesn't happen overnight. There's a 2-year, and to go back to my original point, there was a 2-year contract and a 2-year project for Lopetegui. And he's obviously been tasked with implement the style of play, start building for the future. I think his true measurement will come in the second season. And second season, again, this is pure speculation. I reckon his goal in season 2 is a top 4 finish. I think that's what they've told him. They want him in the top 4 in season 2. So the first season, they've probably said top half, but signs of progression. Season 2, top 4. That's what I think will be the conversation. And that is how, if he shows progress, but doesn't reach top 4, whoever this mystery candidate was that was open to the idea in 2 years, that's when they'll be having those conversations to try and get him in. So that's like a long way of me saying that little thing in my mind is what tells me we are going through a really big transition here. And it's going to take time. And we just kind of have to dig in, especially for the first few months.
I agree with what you're saying about Lopetegui to a point, the 2-year plan. Yeah, because when you're signing players long term, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're signing up like players who are coming in, but your manager's only got 2 years. Now, the argument will be said, before I get to something in the chat there, is that what do we do next season if we do finish 12th? Because people will look at this and go, this geezer's got 1 year left. If it's been a decent-ish season, there will be a section of the fan base are going, well, hold on a minute. Under Moyes, we was shit. We had all these players, like, you had to work with Danny Ings and Cornet and all that. And Lopetegui's got free reign. He's got Kudus, he's got Alvarez, he's got all these other players, and we're finishing 12th. Now, what I can see happening with that situation is that the fan base will be split on Lopetegui there. Because, like, what do? Do you give him benefit of the doubt? Do you go, oh, like, you have to get European position no matter what? For me, when it comes to that, I don't think you have a time to transitional season, because other teams will be up there with us. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think if we go backwards before we go forwards, we could be 2 or 3 years down the road. I think West Ham have to get in the top 10 minimum this year. Like, I think if you want to keep the likes of Kudus, Alvarez, and all these other big hitters, yeah, and you want them to sell the project to them, because I keep hearing this word project all the time, but I'm not seeing it at the minute. I need to see that on the pitch, and with West Ham finishing at least in the top 10. And when I say top 10 to people, it's like they've discovered fire or something. Like, I honestly don't get it. Like, I think people want us to go back to what we used to be, settle for the decent football, and go, whatever happens, happens. But that changed the moment we won that trophy, and we won that Conference League, and no one else from the UK has won that trophy. And I think now people have gone, West Ham can do it. And sections of the fan base, including myself, I've always said this: if West Ham have the right investment and the right structure and plan, West Ham can do anything. Like, like, you've got the fan base, you've got the location, like, but have we got the owners? Now, I will talk about the owners now with you, yeah. But I just want to get to this comment. Blue, it is Have Your Say. The link is in the chat. If you want to come on, Have Your Say, you're very much welcome. Or put your stuff in the chat and I will read it out. If you put question in to Jay, I will read it out and I'll give him the question. At the minute, there was no questions other than this one, and that is Sullivan is a muggy negotiator, which is very, very true. I won't say I will speak on that, but you know what I'm saying. Right, David Sullivan. Obviously, first off, Jay, how do you perceive him with his time at West Ham?
Christ, that's a big question, isn't it? Look. There was an interesting clip that was posted the other day, and this is obviously it needs to still be a hot topic around the club, and the binning concessions thing, right? There was I don't remember who posted it, so I can't credit them, but it was a clip I hadn't seen before of when that move to the London Stadium was announced, and David Sullivan was saying, we could be the cheapest ticket in the Premier League. We could give, his words, I believe, well, we could give football back to the people. And that is nothing but a snake oil salesman saying, this is the best case scenario, and now we've got the worst case scenario. And ultimately, like, the thing that really, really wound me up was this was all set to the backdrop of that away kit launch, where the Bow Church is like embroidered in, I don't know how you would say it, but the imprint of Bow Church is on that away kit. So we're talking about what it means to be a West Ham fan, a traditional East London West Ham fan. At the same time, we are turning our back on the traditional East London West Ham fan and making football unaffordable. So I think that is the summary, and that is the biggest, most shining example of how awful that bloke actually is and what he's done to this football club. Because none of these fan divisions that you'll see over pretty much everything existed until we moved stadium. And like, look, we all accept our new home is our new home, and we are where we are. Like, we're nearly a decade down the line now. So that kind of is what it is. But my perception of him is that for whatever he's done and for whatever money he's put into the club, he's been taken out with the other hands, and he's been robbing fans at the same time. And this is the absolute biggest concern at this football club, regardless of what happens in terms of results, regardless of what you think of head coaches and of signings. I look at this from a personal perspective, right? And I cast my mind back to the first game that I ever went to at Upton Park. West Ham played Southampton. It was like a Wednesday night, I think in 1999. We beat them 2-0. And I'll always remember that feeling when you walked up the steps and you saw the pitch and the excitement as a young kid of, oh, this team that I follow, this thing that I've seen on TV, and you hear the crowd, and that excitement was like nothing that you'd ever experience. And you look at it now, and I look at, if my family were in this position now and ticket prices were like changed to what they are now, I might never have had that opportunity. And that is the start of the death of the upcoming group of young fans of West Ham. And that is the start of the death of the heritage of this club. So this is the number one most important thing at this club at the moment. And so all the save concessions campaigns and stuff, we have to keep giving like air to the fire of that. We have to stay united. That is the key problem. And it is the owners at this club and Karen Brady, which are the biggest problem at this football club, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I've got my feelings on Sullivan. I haven't set foot in the London Stadium ever since we've moved. I look at the way he's currently treating the fan base in regards of like tickets for under 21s, under 18s, elderly. And I'm going to be honest, Jay, I was calling this for a long time now. Obviously, you've seen me in and about on Twitter. I've been doing this YouTube game since 2021, September the 1st. And ever since I've started it, some of the people that are in my chat have known me ever since. I've always said about Sullivan. Sullivan will always be the biggest problem at West Ham United Football Club. Always will be. And no one will even come anywhere near close. Like, I mean, Brady's up there, but you take Sullivan out the game, then she's down the road. She's gone. She ain't hanging about.
Yeah.
So I think, as I always say about the move, I think the move, they destroyed the local community. I'm from the local community. I know people who lost their businesses. I know a lot of people who sort of end up seeping into depression because they lost their business and they had to sell up. Do you know what I'm saying? It affected their lives, affected their home life, everything. And Sullivan decided not to take the museum over to Stratford. There's no museum there. All the old stuff from Upton Park has been either sold on to individual sellers or sold on like it's a piece of shit. And it has always been, ever since he moved in, Sullivan's always seen it, the long-term thing with West Ham. Get by West Ham United Football Club. London 2012 happens. They know the stadium's going to be empty. West Ham make an approach, go in there, and that will be what it'll be. And it played out. Do you know what I mean? We even moved into the stadium a year too early. Like, there was people sitting on concrete slabs in the ground where their seats wasn't even fitted. Do you know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, there has been moments where Sullivan has like a burst of cash flow. Like, he done it in 2016 when he signed all them players and they was all shit. And then he signed players a few years ago when he was in Europe, and obviously last season with the Declan Rice thing. One thing I will give Sullivan credit for is the way he handled that situation with Arsenal and Man City. He didn't budge. He said, it's 100 million. That's what we want. I think the way he worked it was good, but his timing is completely off. Like, coming out on TalkSport a day after Prague when the fans are enjoying their best moment ever, Like
Yeah.
for me, I'm 37 years old. I've seen West Ham get relegated multiple times. I've seen West Ham lose all their players. I've seen a lot of shit, and to see that best moment, and basically he put the fingers up to the fans and was out on TalkSport flogging basically Declan Rice. To me, that was not right. But the way he handled it, the transfer, I think was brilliant. How he done that, I will say that. But with Sullivan, nothing will ever change, and it's proving it now. It's proving it now. A lot of people turned around and said, well, we had to move from Upton Park. Right, we had to go to a bigger ground and all that. I totally understand that. But there's moving, and there's moving with respect and like taking the locals with you. And when you shit on the local, that's the worst thing you do. Yeah, it's the worst thing you do in life, really. It's like you shit on your own, basically. And he done that. The issue is a lot of people who are not from the ends, like not from East London, they get it a bit twisted. They go, oh, it don't bother us, so it ain't going to affect us. But now it does affect them because the ticket, like he's gone down the ticket route now, which affects everyone. Do you know what I mean? And what you're saying about the younger fan, I've discussed it on multiple times on this channel, and I've always said it with that. I've never said it with this. I've always said it with my art, like and how I speak. With Sullivan, it's always going to be about a pound note. It's never going to be about anything else. It's always going to be about the money. And until people start seeing that and start really focusing on Sullivan as the main problem at West Ham, nothing will really never change, mate. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. But that's why my personal goal for this season is just see the fans united again, because I think there's a lot of criticism that gets dished out to a lot of different people at West Ham, and I think it comes down to a whole number of things. No one's immune from criticism, right? Everyone's entitled to their opinion about everything. But when we start picking on, like, the jury's out on Steidten for a lot of people, that's fine. People can have their opinions, no worries. The thing where I started seeing people turn on Mark Noble the other day was wrong. Like that was absolutely outrageous. That man's done more for this club than I challenge you to name someone who's done more for this club in the modern era. And people starting to like say Mark Noble's happy to take the pound note from the club, and it's like, well, he doesn't have a say in any of this. Like anyone who's now starting to direct their frustrations at someone like Mark Noble is completely lost in terms of where we actually are as a fan base and what's actually important to us. And the whole idea is we've been saying for a long time that Sullivan and Brady and whoever have been the problems at this club, but because it falls on deaf ears, people now start trying to blame other people, and that's what it boils down to. People's frustrations that they can't actually get heard because we probably took our foot off the gas. If you remember back when the infamous pitch invasion, when we were 3-0 down to Burnley at London Stadium, when that happened and there was demonstrations constantly, I'm pretty sure there was still demonstrations going on all the way up to when COVID came in and the demonstrations weren't possible. And we took our foot off the gas because the results on the pitch started coming in. And we had a brilliant season. And suddenly we were in Europe and everyone kind of forgot about what the real problem is. But hopefully now is the start of the fans actually waking up to the fact that you can criticize Steidten, you can criticize the head coach, you can criticize whoever you want. They will never be the ultimate problem at this club. I think you and I are quite well aligned on that. That whatever your opinions are on anybody who's on the pitch or making on the field decisions, you can have your opinions and you're entitled to them. But we have to remember what the real problem in this club actually is.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, with these sort of protests and everything else, 2018 was one. COVID was another one. And let's have it right. Newcastle at home when COVID started, when we lost 2-0 and we had fans protesting outside. We then go on to have an unbelievable season in COVID times, dark times, to say the least. And we end up finishing 6th, and then everything goes quiet. Last season, we had the same thing with Moyes. People wanted Moyes at the door. The banners start coming out for GSB. The issue is we're not relentless enough. We're not ruthless. We're not relentless enough in this sort of approach with Sullivan. Now, people will sort of defend it and say, well, look what he's done for the club. Like, he's turned West Ham into a franchise and all that. For me, when you start going down the franchise route, and I'm on this channel with an American and who speaks very, very well in Lucas, and he's told me about the franchise structure, and some of the people in my chat are American based, and they're seeing exactly what happens over in America, what's happening to West Ham right now. Now, when it comes to Steidten, which I'm going to move on to now, that's a bit of a different conversation altogether, because I am in the camp of if he's not allowed to do his job because of the owner of the club is stopping him, then that is a problem because you're stopping the man basically cooking to a point. But is he not allowed to do his job, or is he just not doing his job? That's the $1 million question.
That is a good question, and I saw a load of opinions coming out when he was having pictures with the fans in Florida.
Yeah.
And this is a good point to talk about to kind of start that, right? Is I'll agree with a lot of the criticism there that the optics are really bad. It doesn't look good, does it? You've got a really, really important time for the club. You want your technical director to be full 100%, full steam ahead, bringing players in the door. But you look at it from the other side, right? Does he need to be sat in a porter cabin at Chadwell Heath with his phone in his hand on his own or surrounded by the recruitment team? Or is he best placed as close to the manager and as close to the playing staff as possible? Because this man is clearly incredibly knowledgeable about football. Otherwise, he wouldn't have that job. And he needs to be working. And I would rather see him working closely with Lopetegui so that they can react to things as they change. And Lopetegui has now only seen his team in his style of play for 3 games. So things will change pretty quickly in terms of where his priorities are, which, as we've seen after the Wolves game when we lost, immediately we turn around and go, Jesus, we need another centre-back. And that's what come out in the press. So I'm happy with the fact that he's working so closely with Lopetegui. But I agree, like, the criticism is kind of fair because the proof's in the pudding. Like, you have to be bringing players through the door. And
I'm going to say this, Jay. If my technical director's sitting there having photos with the fans, his mind, like, he might be on the phone. Now, I had this argument the other day with people on Twitter, and it does make you laugh. I'm just going to say this, anyone that's watching. I had people unfollow me and block me and everything, but I won't ever fucking change. Now, in regards of Steidten, I want Steidten to be a success. That's the first thing I will say. I want him to be a success. I want him to be a man who comes in and springboards West Ham to the next level. I really do. But on this one, when you're having pictures with the fans and everything else, and we need, especially defensive cover, like we can see 70+ goals last year. We've changed one defender. We've got rid of a Bonner, we've got rid of Ben Johnson, and we've brought in Max Kilman. Now, it's a good signing, don't get me wrong, but we still need a right back at this club, and technically we still need another centre half at this club, right? So we need another 2 defensive players. I do look at it in regards of recruitment. I'm not seeing anything as yet, but it's not to say I won't see anything as yet. And I will judge it. I don't judge it at the end of the window because West Ham don't start the season at the end of the window. They start on the 17th of August. Are we going to be ready to start the games with Aston Villa, Crystal Palace and Manchester City before the window shuts? That's what I need to see. Yeah. I can understand it from a penny pinching sort of, you're trying to do deals, you're trying to get things done. I get all that. But if I was to ask you right now, do you think West Ham are ready for the start of the season? Probably you're going to say no. Do you know what I mean? Because they're just not. Yeah. And the way I look at it is they have to be ready. They simply have to be. Like, I think we, as a club, and especially as a fan base, we rely on our stars to get us out of shit all the time. Like Alvarez, Kudus, Bowen, Paqueta. Right? Obviously, they are great players. Yeah. But we can't rely on them at all. Like, we need more than just them. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
great.
With Steidten, I want him to be a success, but it needs to happen now rather than later for me. It really does.
No, I totally agree with you, mate. You're 100% right. I currently don't think that we're ready for the Villa game. I think we're a long way off. As I kind of mentioned at the start, we still need 5 players who can come in and have the ability to start a Premier League game. Like, not saying they will be like bona fide 100% starting every week, but we need players who could come in and start a game when they're asked to. And we currently are miles off of that. Now, I agree with you. Like, we're judged on the fact that is the team ready and are we winning games? We're 3 games down by the time the window ends. And if we're 3 games and 3 losses, we're in a really bad spot to start with. And we can't afford to be doing that, especially when they're 3 really tough games. Villa at home is a tough game. Palace away, under Glasner are a really good side.
Agreed.
And City, you just write that off every season, realistically. Like, we're going to get turned over by City. That's pretty obvious. So realistically, you need to win one of those first 2 games. And I currently don't think that we're equipped to be able to do that. I might be wrong, but at the same time, I agree with you in that we need to get people over the line pretty soon. Now, we could have this conversation again in 5 days' time, and we could have Wan-Bissaka over the line, and we could have one of these two strikers over the line. But how many times do you get to the start of a week and go, we could sign 2 players this week, because we're always in advanced negotiations and we're always leading the race? Mate, we've been leading so many transfer races this summer. We might as well have Lewis Hamilton instead of Tim Steidten. Like, it's mad at this point. How often will we lead in the race? And then it just goes cold altogether. So as far as I'm concerned, if we still can manage to get 2 players over the line in the next 10 days, that's 2 big problems sorted. I might change my answer to the question, are we ready for the Villa game? But as of right now, I'd agree with you. We're not ready, and we do need to pull our finger out.
I completely agree, mate. Elite, welcome. If you're there.
James, how are you?
How you doing,
all right,
man?
mate. All right. That is Jay to my right.
How you doing, Jay?
What are you saying, Elite? Talk to me.
First things first, I'm saying good evening. I'm saying, how are you? I'm wondering what is on your gentlemen's minds when you think West Ham at the moment. What is the number one thought that crops into your minds? What's current? What's relevant? What are we talking about?
Signings. And lots of... Please.
Now, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, Jay. Yeah, and you said that we need to win one of the first 2 games of the season. Personally, I disagree with that rhetoric. We saw it a lot last season. We need to win this game. It's a must win. And then we didn't win and the world didn't collapse. I think my perspective is, realistically, even at this point now, whoever we bring in, it's going to be tough to get them up to scratch ready for that first game. So I wonder, is it not better to play the waiting game, play the transfer window, be patient like we were last season, and arguably sign the better players and spend the better money? Is patience not the key virtue for us this transfer window? What do you guys think?
I think you strike on some really good points there, to be honest. Patience is a virtue, and we've kind of shown in our pursuit of a right back that patience is a virtue. You look at how the chase for Kyle Walker-Peters unfolded, right? And we threw away our bargaining chip in Flynn Downs, and we sold him in good faith for what I think was a fair price, knowing that Kyle Walker-Peters was our number 1 target, right? Southampton refused to play ball. And I've got a theory on this as well, right? I reckon Sullivan or somebody upset somebody at Southampton when we bought James Ward-Prowse off them. And this was their way of getting their own back, was them going, yeah, we'll deal with you over Walker-Peters. They take Flynn Downs and they go, we don't need you anymore. And that's that. So somebody must have upset somebody at Southampton is my theory. But anyway, patience was a virtue in that respect, because then we registered our interest in Wan-Bissaka, same kind of price. So then we went, all right, you're after Mazraoui. We went and bid for Mazraoui, went back to Manchester United and went, right, you ready to talk now? And the price has come down. So I think there is a lot of merit in what you say. Patience is absolutely a virtue. I still think we need 2 more signings in before the season starts. And I think when we talk about who you can be patient with, I think the centre forward spot is one that you need to be patient with. I think when we talked at the top of the show about Füllkrug versus Durán and stuff, we could pull the trigger on Füllkrug and it could be a horrible decision, because we don't know what the final price for Durán is actually going to be. So I think there's a trade-off in terms of we need bodies in the door, but I agree with you in that the deals will start coming available at the end of the transfer window. I think that's kind of separate to what I'm saying in terms of I think we need to win one of the first 2 games, because I think Palace and Villa are going to be our measuring stick for how we perform this season. I think they're 2 teams that are really exciting in terms of squad and have new managers and have proven that changing your manager from someone who is tactically maybe a bit behind the times to a Spanish manager or a German manager has proven really, really successful for those 2 clubs. So when I say I think we need to win one of those 2 games, I still stand by it. I agree with you, patience is a virtue, but win one of those 2 games. For me, sign 2 players before the start of the season, and then the deals, as you say, will probably start coming towards the end of the window.
What do you say about that?
Question that I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, James. Do you think right now, looking at the players we've got available, let's say Bowen comes back as well, Alvarez has just returned, do you think we've got a team capable right now, or a starting 11 capable of, giving these teams a game?
it's about being ready, because my argument is I want West Ham to be ready this season, because like how many times at the start of the season we're a bit up and down or all over the place, and this is a big season. I'm going to be honest. Under Lopetegui, we don't know how it's going to go. If he could either be an amazing success, this geezer's the next Messiah at West Ham, and everyone's dancing from the fucking streets of East London, or he's a big flop, and it ends up going backwards fast, and yeah, it's not as good as like the grass isn't always greener. So we've got to get this right. Um, we've got good players, but have we got a good squad at the minute? That's the $1 million question, and the answer to that is no. Yeah, we haven't got any bench players other than Guilherme on the bench who can come on and maybe change the game. But you put a lot of pressure on an 18-year-old kid. We need some firepower, gentlemen. And I don't want to be negative, but I've got to be real. Like, we need players in the door, ready to go, come Aston Villa at the start of the season. Because I've seen it so many times at West Ham United. When West Ham starts slow and West Ham start eating a few defeats and the fan base start getting a bit rattled by it, yeah, things start to go backwards very, very quick, and negativity will get in there. Do you know what I'm saying? I want Steidten to be a success. I want Lopetegui to be a success. This is not a Lopetegui agenda. This is not a Steidten agenda. I just think West Ham right now, and something that Rob said on the Spaces a minute ago about Durán, if West Ham would have acted a couple of weeks ago faster on the Durán deal, and instead of them selling Douglas Luiz, they could have sold Durán, and we could have got him for a cut sort of price fee, then everyone would have been looking at it a bit different. But at the minute, if someone said to me right now, "Are West Ham ready for the start of the season?" We don't even know who our captain is going to be, gentlemen. Like, I'm not being funny. Like, no one can pinpoint who is definitely going to be the captain. Yeah, of West Ham United. So, yeah, Elite, I'm mixed. Got good players, but we haven't got a good squad at the minute, and the squad is not ready for me.
I think the only thing I'd say there is I would agree. I would definitely agree. I think we need some cover in a lot of positions. I think right back especially. But the question is, I think early on in the season, you need a team. Later as the season goes, that's when your squad really comes into effect. I think looking around, I've completely forgotten my point of view. Anyway, hold on.
No, I know what you're saying.
What was I gonna say? The reality is, where this season is different to last season in a really key way is we haven't got Europe, right? We're gonna have a lot of midweeks, and we're gonna have a lot of full weeks worth of training to implement a style of football. So I understand why people are talking about the rush to bring these players in, but they're gonna have time to integrate. And they really are. There's not going to be that constant turnover of games, especially in the early part of the season. I think come Christmas, you do get that, 2-3 games a week sometimes. But I think there is going to be that time to really get them used to the style of football. So for me, the rush isn't on. One thing that concerns me a little bit, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Jay, where we're going as a fan base. Have some respect, has said. Steidten isn't the Messiah. He deserves criticism too. Steidten isn't the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now, our question there, people talking about our new technical director, saying he's a naughty boy, etc., these sort of insulting comments. Where are we going as a fan base when we've been crying out for this change? Have we taken a step backwards? Is this season going to be better? Was it worth getting Moyes out? I mean, what do you guys think on this? Have we taken one step forward, 2 steps back? What do you reckon?
It is a refresh. I'm going to let Jay land on what he wants to say, but for me, to make it short, it's a refresh. Like, now, like, everyone will say, well, it's a transitional season. Now, if it don't go according to plan, it's a transitional season. If it goes according to plan and we end up finishing 8th, yeah, Lopetegui is the best thing to ever happened. And all them people last season that were on the Moyes out brigade will come out in full force. Now, I'm going to let Jay land on it. So go on, Jay.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting questions. And I think that's why one of the things I said earlier was one of my, if not my, biggest desire for this season is just that the fans get united again. Because I think you struck on, was it 1 step forward, 2 steps back? Time will tell, ultimately. We can't see into the future. I still, for me, I would have been fine with if Moyes had stayed. I am happy that Lopetegui is here. I don't mind. I think the whole negative aura around the club, especially around that stadium. Every time we weren't winning a game at half time, the players were getting booed off. And then the frustrations at what I kind of said earlier, at the club, at the manager, at everything was spilling onto our energy towards the players. And us as a fan base, we can't allow that to happen in the new season. So for me, I think this will be a step forward for us in terms of, I think as a club, we needed a change. I think we just needed, as you said, James, we needed a refresh, we needed a reset, and we needed something new to try and get the fans excited again. Because that is the whole point of why we follow the club, right? We want to be excited, we want to see the team win, but ultimately we just want to enjoy watching football games. And whilst there's a really valid point in the fact that under Moyes we weren't playing, we were mostly watching the other team play. There was a trade-off there in that he was incredibly successful. So we shouldn't. What I don't want to see is the second things start going wrong, the Moyes in supporters start getting really vocal and going, "Oh, well, this was a bad decision." And when things start going well, we don't want to see divisions popping up in other places. Ultimately, I want us as a fan base to get behind the team, to get behind the club. And when I talk about it being a project, and when I talk about it, this could be a transitional season, as we kind of say, I think that's my goal, is whatever happens, as long as we stay behind the team and stay behind the players, that's the ultimate goal. Because that's when, if it doesn't go our way this season and we don't end up where we hope or where we think we should be, then that's when we still keep moving in the right direction, is the way that I see it.
But I think what it is with that, though, Jay, just to come in there, is that it all depends on what you perceive as West Ham and progression. For me, I've seen West Ham many a years finishing 14th in the league. Yeah, I've seen West Ham play some decent stuff, finish 14th in the league, and that's the West Ham. Yeah, the moment you move from Stratford to from Upton Park to Stratford, that completely goes out the window for me, because that's not West Ham of old anymore. This is a new era now, and West Ham have to be competing at the top end of the Premier League, top 10. You know what I mean? And I don't think when, and I said to you earlier on, I don't think when people say that, I don't think I'm being unreasonable when I say that. Do you know what I'm saying? When I say West Ham should be competing for top 10, if I was saying top 4 or trying to win the title, then I can understand that side of things. But a top 10 finish for West Ham United Football Club with 65,000 1 week in, 1 week out, I don't think that's too much to ask, if I'm being honest. And I don't think I'm being unreasonable in saying that. Do you know what I mean? I personally think David Moyes, previous, opened up the door to allow fans like myself to go, you can be like this, right? And you can do this. You can qualify for Europe. You can go on and win a trophy. And no other clubs have done it. Everton haven't done it for years. Aston Villa haven't done it for years. Newcastle haven't done it for years. So what I don't want to see is West Ham being West Ham of old. I really don't. I don't want to see West Ham going backwards in time and going to mid-table, when I want to see West Ham being roughly where we are, but a better style for me. I don't know what you think on that, Elite, but I'll let you land on it. Silence is golden. Fair enough.
He agrees completely.
Sorry. I had a question. Do you think that the quicker the season starts, the better? Right? Are we just trying to fill this gap with conversation, and inevitably, if someone is negative, that conversation is going to take a negative tilt? Is it the better West Ham start playing football, and we can all discuss that? Is that going to improve the conversation? Is that going to lead to more positivity?
I don't know. I don't think so, mate. I really don't, because what it is that Tim Steidten, for me, and I'll let you land on this, Jay, was made out to be the Messiah. He's going to come in and he's going to transform West Ham United Football Club. That's all fine. I'm all for that. I love a bit of change in my life. But you have to be real in this change, though, and say, right, we conceded 70 goals last season, and let's be honest, defence is a major problem at West Ham last season, right? Because we were seeing goal after goal after goal, and Areola was getting peppered every other game. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, I would have thought you need to identify defenders, defensive cover urgently, to get them integrated into the side under Lopetegui, and work with them. On the striker front and on attackers, I think that comes in time. I think you can bring an attacker in, you can work with him in game, 20 minutes, working on the training pitch. But I think when you've got a defensive unit, you have to work with that over a longer period of time. And I just don't think we have, if I'm being honest. What are you saying, Joe?
Yeah, you made some good points. I think on Steidten, and I'm not like a Steidten is the Messiah, and I'm not a Steiden's doing nothing. I'm quite balanced in my view of him, and I think look at his first period of his time here when he was working with David Moyes, and he didn't have full control. Like Moyes famously was quite reluctant to sign any of the players that he was interested in signing. You look at Yusuf Fofana, for example. You look at when Steidten and Noble were quite vocally pushing that we try and sign him last season when we probably had a chance of signing him. Moyes was against it. Moyes had ultimate control. Now he's moved on. We go back to that because Steidten was probably right, and now he doesn't want to come because we don't have European football. So look at that situation there where he was dealing with Moyes with ultimate control, Sullivan controlling the purse strings. So he was hamstrung in his first part of his time at this club. And look at it now. He's dealing with a head coach who he was very vocally in support of, which is great. He's still dealing with Sullivan, who's pulling the purse strings. So he hasn't really had a lot of time to deliver what is a massive overhaul. We've signed 3 players, all of which I think are good signings. We still need 5 first teamers. And as you mentioned, Lee, like earlier on, the deals will start coming available towards the end of the window. You can make an argument for, is our strategy to transfers the right strategy? But that's not a new strategy, i.e. we look at about 10 different players for like one position. We open talks with a club and then we weigh up what's the best deal. And then we make a decision about 4 weeks down the line, generally. Is that the right strategy? Like that's for the court of public opinion to decide whether you agree with that or not. But ultimately, I think on Steidten, his first stint at this club, his first part of his stint at this club, he's been hamstrung. So I still say give him a little bit of time and we'll see whether he's the Messiah and we'll see if he's not, ultimately.
See, it's mixed with me on that because I was hearing what you were saying and I was like, I can understand what you're saying, but then on the other side of it, he has been here a year. Surely in that year, and as we said earlier on, when he arrived at West Ham, I would have probably assumed, I'm assuming, like no one sort of take this for gospel, but I think the discussion would have been said about a centre forward to replace Mikel Antonio. Because where West Ham are so bad at it, and they are so bad at finding centre forwards at this club, maybe Tim Steidten isn't so bad at it, and he could have found someone. And with the players that we've been linked to, we've been linked with Callum Wilson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Durán, obviously Füllkrug now. There was someone else. Ivan Toney is another one we've been linked with. Alexander Sorloth, I think his name is, from Villarreal, another one. We've been linked with so many strikers, but nothing is pinpointed. Yeah, nothing is like, that's the guy. We need to go and get that guy, and no one else is irrelevant. Now, they did that with Durán for a bit of a time, but now that's sort of where Villa have changed the goalposts on that. That's put us in a bit of a situation now because we've got a player who wants to come to us. Villa are saying you can sign him and you just got to pay the money, and West Ham don't want to pay the money. The fact of the matter is West Ham just do not want to pay the money for Jhon Durán that Villa are asking for. Now, for me, where'd you go with that?
I still think he's the player who joins the club. I still think my opinion is that the Füllkrug bid is a smokescreen, and it's us trying to say to Villa, all right, well, we'll go elsewhere, but we'll do the same thing and we'll keep talks going. I guarantee these advanced talks last for weeks, and God knows what you could be in advanced talks about for however long we'll probably drag this out. But my opinion is that we drag this out and we just play chicken with Aston Villa. Because once Durán starts coming into training and eyeing up some big challenges and stropping around, they're probably going to be more inclined to start looking at reducing that price. So I genuinely think Durán is the player that we'll get. So all of our opinions on this, my thoughts is he'll be the player that we'll get, and all of it will kind of be irrelevant. I think that before the Villa game, we'll get Durán, and I think we'll get Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well. And then we'll sit tight and see what comes available for left wing, centre mid and centre back. So that's just what I think will happen anyway. But
I think that Mateta news today, I don't think Villa would have been delighted with that sneaking out as well, especially given the fact that none of these players are going to move during the Olympics either. He's not going to drop out of the camp to go for a medical. So I do think with Villa especially, I mean, the club know it full well. If they wait, they're probably going to be able to get Durán for the price they're willing to pay. And my worry is maybe fan pressure becomes too much, that they buckle and don't make the right decisions. I'm probably wrong there. I don't think the club would do that. I think they're always going to be patient. So I would encourage the same from the fans. I wonder there then, talking about this idea of patience, when should we be talking about Tim Steidten in a way of judgment? Should we be judging him now? Should we be judging him based off the players he's brought in so far? Should we be judging him based
I think
off
you judge him.
rumours? Should we be
you,
judging him by the 17th of August, like you've said today, James? Should we be judging him
100%.
by the end of the summer window? Or maybe should we be judging him in a 2 or 3 years' time? And we're looking back and going, oh, they were good signings. When do we actually be judging him? Because in my eyes, James, I think you putting on that deadline of the 17th of August, great day, by the way, my birthday, for him to be a success, I think is a little harsh, personally.
Disagree. Because the 17th of August, we're under a new manager, new tactics, new style, and new vision. And that vision has to be met with the players, and they have to be integrated into this side urgently. I've not seen nothing with West Ham over the last 3 games to warrant saying that we're going to look good against Aston Villa on the first game of the season. I think you judge Steidten at the end of the window. If some people will judge him at the end of this window, and then you have to leave it to the end of the season, yeah, and then go from there. But I do think you have to be ready for the start of the season, and West Ham are not ready at the minute. Now, I look at it a bit different. I've seen it so many times before where West Ham do a lot of their business at the back end of the window, start going in for the late deals for Bergwijn or Depay or someone like that, and they start grabbing whoever they can, yeah, because they done it a few years ago with Vlasic to a point, yeah. Now, Steidten
did it last season, arguably. We didn't have any new signings available for the first game of the season. Didn't win that game as a result.
But we wasn't under a new manager then. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do think there was a change in style. If you talk about the style that Moyes was trying the season before that versus this season, and I think on in terms of that change of style, if you listen to a lot of the players' interviews, most of what they've been talking about is, the amount of hard work they've had to put in terms of fitness, etc. I think pre-season, that's actually what it tends to focus on. I've never seen a side come into the Premier League and have a fully fledged style of play from minute one. I think often we see that develop over a season. You can often see changing formations, things like that. Take Crystal Palace last season and the players get firing. But if we were actually talking about these patterns of play, these routines, we're still missing some players. Alvarez has just got back. These things are not going to be established from day one of the new season. They're going to be established over the next 38 plus games, in my eyes.
I get that. But as what Jay said earlier on, which I make him right, is it ain't like we've got an easy start to the season. Aston Villa, Champions League, Oliver Glasner at Selhurst Park. We never win there. Yeah, and when we do, it's always like 5-3, 4-3, 6-4, whatever you want to name it. Yeah, and then we've got Manchester City, and then we've got an international break after that. So what I don't get is that if you're looking to try and bring players in, one, they've got to be coming in and being integrated into the side. You don't really want an international break on the 7th of September, yeah, when you've just brought in a load of players, and then you've got to leave it another week, and then you've got to get them up to speed with what's going on at West Ham. Nevertheless, they may even be internationals who might have to go around the world to other countries to play football. Like, for me, I'm a bit different. Like, I think when people use last season and Moyes had been there for a few seasons. He had established himself. You knew what you was getting. This season, no one knows what we're getting. No one can sit there and say that this is exactly what we're going to get. Last season, you knew that. You knew that James Ward-Prowse was coming. You knew that Mavropanos was going to be there. Kudus was a shock to a lot of people, because I don't think people thought West Ham could get him, but we did. And also, Edson Alvarez was a shock. So, yeah, I'm on that, man. What are you saying, Jay, to round it up?
Yeah, I think if we're looking at judging, like the overall question there was like, when do we judge Steidten, right? And how do we judge him? Yeah. So my opinion on that is, if you look at the transfer window so far, we've got 3 over the line. Guilherme was, like, by all accounts, you can't judge that signing. People are already trying to cast their opinion on him. You can't judge that signing for about 3 years. Like, you will not know whether that was worthwhile in terms of an investment for about 3 years, because he's one for the future. But I look at it from the way that the level of ambition that we've shown in some of the targets that we've gone for, right? We've got into, I know it's the old, we've got into advanced discussions with, but we've been in contact with a lot of clubs for some high profile players, which means he's not sitting there doing nothing. We're identifying talent, and we're trying to get players, not just for the sake of it, but we're trying to get top quality players who can deliver us the season that we want this year, which is ultimately get back into Europe. That's the goal this season, yeah? So you look at the players like Todibo, and, like, I know we were linked with Kante, you look at Fofana, you look at the quality of play that we've been trying to get, and you can't fault what the recruitment team is actually trying to do. But ultimately, the fact we don't have European football means that those players don't want to come. So I think actually you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? So Steidten's job is lead the horse to water and see if we can get something closed. He's not the person who's deciding how much we can spend on players, ultimately. So my opinion is he's actually done quite well so far, but he can try hard and he can be doing well. As we've said, the proof's in the pudding. Does he get players through the door? Can we actually sign players? Again, for me, as long as he gets a right back and one other player, if he gets Wan-Bissaka is the number one for me. I want him to get that over the line because I think he is top quality, and hopefully a striker in before the start of the season, and then keep working on the other three. I'm happy with what he's done personally.
Ali, any other questions you want to ask before I hand it over to Jay to ask anything he wants to ask before I wrap this up?
Well, I was enjoying that. I was enjoying asking the questions, hearing the responses there. Now you've put me on the spot. It's a little bit trickier. My final question would be, what in your eyes, I don't know, I think that's such a boring question. Is Lopetegui going to be a success? Are we going to enjoy the football this season? Do you think he's actually going to be able to install an exciting brand of football that the fans have craved with this group of players? You know,
I don't know.
You've still got a lot of the same players. Alvarez, Souček, Ward-Prowse looks to be the midfield this season.
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to change the way West Ham play?
I'm going to be honest. I'm nervous about this season. Out of any other season, I'm nervous because I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. Yeah. I get when people say about they want to see winning football, they want West Ham to look good, but I want to see West Ham successful. Right? I don't want to see West Ham finishing mid fucking table every season. Right, because if that's the case, then why the fuck did we go to Stratford? Like, it's simple as that. Like, why? Like, if you're going to be like that, you might as well stay at Upton Park and embrace the history and the heritage of this fine club of ours. You know what I'm saying? For me, I need to see something new this season from Lopetegui, something fresh, something that I'll go, well, yeah, I can see the plan there. The interesting thing is the 2 years deal with the option of a third year if he gets Europe. Now, if someone says to me right now, James, this is going to be a season where he's going to prepare his squad, then the following season he's going to sell Paqueta or sell Kudus, and he's going to have a lot more money to come in, and then the next season is the season where he's going to try to hit European sort of standard, then maybe I might agree. I might go, you know what, we'll see how it goes. But my fear is if West Ham don't do that and West Ham end up finishing mid-table, we could be in the same situation that we are currently in right now where no one wants to come to us. Like, we might not be able to get these big hitter players, and we might not be able to sign these stars because no one wants to come to us because we haven't got European football. And the European football, whether it's Conference League, is such a big thing. I said it last season on Spaces, and I was like preaching it to the high heaven, saying basically we have to get European football to attract these players. Now, you've seen it with Newcastle, you've seen it with Villa, and I just feel that I just feel nervous about this one. I don't know why. I don't think we're going down or nothing like that, nothing stupid, but I think it's going to be a season of up and downs. I really do. And I think like what Jay said earlier on about the Moyes in, Moyes out, I think that's going to come out because if he does well, then people will be saying about Moyes. If he don't do so well, they'll be saying about Moyes. And some people fucking literally can't forget David Moyes ever. So, you know, it is. I'm nervous, yeah, but if I can see like the picture being drawn, then I can maybe look at it a bit different. But at the minute, I'm seeing 3 players I'm seeing a lot of hearsay, a lot of spill, but nothing is in writing and nothing signed, sealed, and delivered for me. What did you say?
You forget though, David Moyes, isn't he?
He is, mate. I must admit. What did you say on that, Jay? Before we come to the end,
I'll tell you what I want to see, and this divides opinion. I think because of the style that we've been playing over the last few years, in games that we should win, right? If we're playing at home against the bottom half team, I want to see us start Alvarez, Paqueta, and Kudus in midfield as the centre midfield three, because this is not a low block team. This is not a low block system. This is not a system where we're designed to contain teams. This is, and if this was under David Moyes, I would be terrified of that centre midfield trio. But the reason I want to see that is in a team that wants to dominate possession, in a team that wants to be a free-flowing, attacking, and control the game. You need players who are willing to drop in and get the ball 18 yard on their own 18-yard box and play it around. You look at when Paqueta did that last season, and there's a number of times where he'd get it, nobody wanted the ball from him, and he would give it away, and it would either cost us a goal or nearly cost us a goal. You look at what we need in that side under Lopetegui. You need players who are willing to take a risk. You need players who are willing to get hold of the game and decide, I'm going to dictate what happens here, and players who are going to play a pass to break the lines. Lucas Paqueta, next to Edson Alvarez, if you can get him confident, will be exactly what you need when you want to have 60 to 65% possession of the ball and you want to take the game to somebody. So drawing that picture, James, that you said, which I agree, I want to see him drawing that picture. I want to see signs of development. Us having the belief that we are better than a team and that we can play a team at home and we can play them off the pitch. I don't remember the last time I saw West Ham play a team off the pitch. Like, realistically, a team that we should play in the Premier League and go, right, we're going to turn you over today. I don't remember. So I want to see something risky, because the Spanish coach and European style of football that we're going to hopefully be seeing this year is risky. And that is what I want to see. It's risky, and people will go, he can't play in centre midfield because he's a liability. He would be under Moyes. But in a game where, in a style of play where we're going to have the ball, that's what I would like to see.
I think my worry there is, I mean, talk about, just giving it to a team, Luton last season, maybe Wolves at home as well. But I think my worry is I think people going into this season, and I think their views on football are, I don't know, slightly skewed based maybe on last season and the way we played. I don't think we're going to be playing like YOLO football under Lopetegui. He is very much like a possession man. It's going to be lots of backwards passes. And the fact is, every time last season that we passed the ball backwards, our fans went utterly ballistic. I think I do worry that if we don't start well, this is my one worry for the season. I'm very optimistic. I really trust Steidten. I think we're going to sign some good players. But I think a certain portion of the fan base, I mean, you've already seen it. I saw on He Shall Not Be Named's channel, he was abusing Souček based off a pre-season game. My worry is, if we don't start well, like I said, really tough start to the season, people are going to be really on the team and on this style of football. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny, a lot of pressure. And I just hope these players can stand up to it. I do like the idea of West Ham controlling games and, playing teams off the park, etc. But this is the Premier League. There's not many teams who do that. And when you do play like that, the other team normally has to have a very bad day. But like I said, I'm optimistic. I think Steidten's going to deliver the goods. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. And I do worry, James, you draw in your own personal deadline day, 17th of August, you're going to be left disappointed. Stay patient, stay calm, trust in Tim.
Oh, very well put. For me, I understand it, and I get all his style of play and all that. But listen, I want to see West Ham winning games, right? I don't care how we win, as long as we win. Yeah, I think that would only cut thin with us looking good for a certain amount of time before the fan base start to go, well, hold on a minute, like we was fighting Europe the other year, now we're 12th. I don't want to be like these lesser clubs. I want to be fucking up there with the big boys, where West Ham should be. And my attitude is, I think some people get it a bit twisted to a point. I think they look at it and they go, oh, well, I just want to see West Ham look good, and I don't care what happens, right? And then there's people like myself who say, well, we left Upton Park to go to Stratford. Right, we're in this big old ground, we're signing big players for big money. I want to see a big team. I don't want to see a mid-table team sitting there going, "Oh, we look good, but we're not doing nothing." And we've done more than what Aston Villa, Newcastle, and any of these other sort of so-called bigger sides have done in our recent history than they've done in their long-term history. So, like for me, I get it with the Moyes thing, and I'm going to sort of speak to you about Moyes as we come towards the end, because obviously I don't know what your thoughts are on Moyes, Jay, and his time at West Ham. But for me, I just think West Ham, it has to be the same this season. Like it has to be like, I think finishing 14th or 13th is unacceptable for this club, especially the money that we're paying and the players we've got. Because if you're going to accept that, then you're going to wave goodbye to Paqueta, goodbye to Kudus, and goodbye to probably Alvarez and all, in my opinion. But David Moyes, Jay, like as we sort of bring it to the end, because obviously you've been on the air, we spoke about we've gone through the whole shebang, and I will get you on again. What are you saying, obviously, in regards to the past with Mr. Moyes?
I think I'm one of those similar to you that I just want to see us win football games. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for what this new era holds. And what I mean, just very quickly on that point, and what I mean by like the style and see us dominate teams and stuff like that, that results in winning games, and that results in scaring other teams, and that results in other teams changing their tactics for when they play us. So that's what I mean by when we play a bottom half team, and what we haven't seen in a long, long time. I haven't seen a West Ham team set up to try and do that in a long, long time. My thoughts are, what Moyes did at this club deserves to be celebrated, and he should go down as one of the greats in West Ham history. But that does not mean that he's immune from needing to maybe move on at the right time. And I think it was the right time for us to change tact, and right time for him to move on, because the fans were so divided and it was really hard to watch by the end. It was really, really hard to watch. The amount of games that I'd go to and the atmosphere is dead, which is not best it's not good at the best of times, but the atmosphere would be dead. Fans weren't interested. And it was a really, really hard watch, just as to your point, Lee, just watching us play it sideways and play it backwards. So I think that what he's done deserves to be celebrated, but I think it was the right time for him to move on. I think what Lopetegui's going to do, I think he's going to do well. I think we've talked a lot about what if we finish here, what if we finish there. Like, ultimately, we can have that conversation if and when that happens. Ultimately, I think that we will finish top half this season. I think it will take time for the style to bed in, because he's got to get the right players in the right place, which, again, I agree. I don't think that will happen before the end of the window. I think we'll probably make a couple of signings on deadline day, maybe. But I think once it clicks, I think it will be really fun to watch, and I think we will finish in the top half.
Before we go, a quick one. Who should be the captain next year, Elite, for West Ham? If you're there.
I can go first if you want.
Go on, Joe.
I would like to see, I think Jarrod Bowen, personally, because he loves the club, because I think there's a leader in there, and because he sets an example on how to play. He gives 100%, and he's the guy that we turn to when we need someone to make something happen. I would say potentially Max Kilman. I would say potentially Edson Alvarez, but I think Bowen's been around long enough. He is clearly the talisman, and he's the bloke with 6 years on his contract. He clearly wants to be at this club for the long term, and he's come out whilst he was at England camp and said he wants to be captain one day. If he wants to be captain in his club, he's earned it, in my opinion. So I would say Jarrod Bowen for me, mate.
Tricky one, really, because I look at Alvarez, and a lot of people would say about Alvarez, but he's a yellow card away from a suspension. Jarrod Bowen's a shout. I've always said that I think Bowen loves this club. I think he stays here for the rest of his career. I think what you get with Jarrod Bowen is a player that will give his all and expect other people to lead by example. I think that's a very key thing. Like, he does lead by example with his performances. People say that there's a lot of pressure on him, because obviously, do they want the pressure of him being the captain? And then if it don't go right, people start having a go at him. I get that argument, but I don't believe that you go and give a new player like Max Kilman the captaincy, because you're going to ruffle a lot of feathers in there. I really do. After that, it's an interesting one. Who else really is there? Do you know what I'm saying? There's not many people in there who can take the captain's armband and lead this sort of side. So it's probably going to be Bowen, Alvarez, or Kilman. and it's going to be one of the three, and probably I'll go with Bowen and all, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I can't see any other way.
Elite, are you there? The signs of silence.
You've lost him.
Yeah, I've lost him. Right, I let him out because I think he's cut out. But anything you want to add, Jay, before we wrap this up, mate?
I don't know, mate. We've set the worlds to right today, haven't we? So I'm happy that we've covered everything. Like I say, all I want is the fans to try and be patient. We love to just find a reason to moan about stuff just for the sake of it. I'm like, we can't judge anything until we're a handful of games into the season. Maybe at that, as you say, at that international break is probably when we can sit down and go, how has it actually started? Did we get the signings right? Does the style is the style of play actually looking like it's shaping up how we want it? So I think until then, I want us to try and be patient. I want us to try and dig in, and I just want us to enjoy watching West Ham again. And that's it. Yeah,
I agree. To round this video up, Niclas Füllkrug, if he is the guy, then fair enough. But I do want more than just a 31, soon to be 32-year-old centre forward at the club. I will say that. I need to see some signings. I need to see people in the shirt. I am crying out for it. It's like a drug to me. I want to see. I need it. I fucking need it in this club. Yeah. And listen, we've got a couple of weeks before the season starts, and obviously we've got a game on Saturday with Crystal Palace, 12 o'clock, midnight in Tampa. Lucas is going to be out there. And for me, just to round this video up, I want to be positive. I want to be going, yes, like we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Fucking show me West Ham there. Do you know what I mean? Please. That's all I ask. Show me. Because at the minute, I am not seeing it at the minute. I'm seeing like an outline of this painting, but we need to colour the painting in a little bit. I'm saying, and start filling in like the blanks. Just also, Jay, has been an absolute pleasure coming on here today. I've really enjoyed him coming on. Jay, shout out all your social media links and anything you want to shout out before you go, mate.
Yeah, just grab me on Twitter at JDogWHU. I think you tagged me in a tweet earlier. So yeah, grab me on there and you'll get more opinions and more nonsense.
Yeah, fair play. I'll be back in the week to do more of this stuff. Hopefully we get a signing through the door. Wan-Bissaka, Durán, or Niclas Füllkrug. Right, I mean, the German sensation. I don't know if I'm ballsing his name up, but it is what it is. But listen, keep the faith, West Ham fans. I will say that. I get this comment from Adam, because I ain't spoken to Adam for ages. Hi, mate. Hope you're well. Pretty mid-transfer window so far. AWB seems to be the next on the cards. I'll take AWB and Durán, please. Adam, I will get you on here in the near future, mate, to have your say also. Yeah, listen, keep the faith, West Ham fans. I will say that, because this club does drive you mad at times. And also, just to say this, debate is good. Trust me, because you get your voices heard, and we can agree to disagree and not act like children. So yeah. Anyway, that's enough from Jay. That's enough from me. Take care, and I'll see you again soon. Peace.